Welcome to this presentation, Apex Meet the Rest of the Web, Modern Web Technologies in your Apex application. I'm Craig Sykes and I'm from Explorer. So, who are Explorer? We're an Oracle Platinum partner and we've won multiple awards. Most recently, we won a Gold Award in the Database Partner of the Year and Engineered Systems Partner of the Year, and we got the Silver Award in the Training Partner of the Year. We are made up of multiple dedicated Oracle teams. We've got the development team that I work for, we've got database support, and we have an engineered systems practice. There's a slide here to show you what our development team and our database support team do. We primarily develop, consult, support, and educate all around Oracle development. And the database team offer services such as database support, migrations, upgrades, maintenance, and performance tuning. Who am I? I'm Craig Sykes. I have many years' experience in Oracle technologies, including PLSQL, Forms, Reports, and most recently Apex, working across many different business sectors. So my job involves training people in how to use Oracle Apex. I'm also a speaker at events and I write multiple blogs about things I've found out regarding Oracle development, but primarily I'm a consultant and developer. I like to promote and enthuse about Oracle Apex because Apex is the tool that we've chosen because we think it offers the best development environment on top of an Oracle database. So the agenda for this presentation, we're going to have a look at how you can connect Apex with the rest of the web using modern technologies and incorporate some of these new technologies into your Apex applications. We're going to have a look at current trends and how Apex stands with those. Then we're going to have a look at some examples including searching, maps, charts, file uploads, and incorporating popular website APIs. We're also going to have a quick look at IoT connections, which is the Internet of Things. Okay, so first of all we're going to have a look at trends. So the current trends in web application development seem to be these. We've got advanced platforms, mean a new responsive design. So originally, responsive design meant that you would develop an application to run in a browser, maybe at a certain resolution or certain supported resolutions. And then if the user accessed using a mobile device, your application would drop down and respond to the screen size and look nice on that device. We no longer are only thinking about mobile phones when we're looking at responsive design. There's some new things, some new technologies that we need to consider. So two examples, we've got wearable gadgets, so things like smartwatches and technologies like Google Glass mean that you've got a very non-standard browser that may be able to access your applications. So a watch, for example, would be a really tiny screen, and you just need to make sure that your applications can drop down and be supported on these kind of screens if there's a potential of them being accessed in this way. Then at the other end of the scale, we've got things like virtual reality taking off. So virtual reality allows completely non-standard viewing experiences. For example, you can watch movies in apparently a huge movie theatre by putting on your virtual reality headset. So if people start using these kind of methods to create web browsers, you don't know what size screen your application is going to be shown on. It could potentially be shown on a huge movie theatre screen. So not only do we have to think about the application sizing downwards, we may possibly in the future have to think about our application sizing upwards. With Apex, we've got responsive design out of the box, but we can incorporate any kind of technologies to kind of allow for these changes in sizes into our Apex applications. Okay, so browser-based development environments. These are becoming very popular. So deployment in the cloud as well as on-premise means that you're going to need some kind of online environment to be able to access your application and data. Apex has been leading the way in this for quite a few years. It's always had a browser-based development environment. So whereas other technologies just kind of starting to implement this, Apex has been doing it all along. We've got the flexibility to access our development environment from anywhere. So with the popularity in working remotely kind of picking up, you can access your Apex applications from anywhere in the world just using a web browser. And we also have access to tools such as the SQL Workshop, which means that we don't need any external tools. We can do everything within the browser in Apex. Full screen navigation. This is becoming quite popular now. So when the user accesses a form on a mobile device, some websites now jumping that form up to full screen to give the user a nicer experience. Apex 5 has come with built-in modal dialogues, and we can use dynamic actions along with these to kind of pop up these dialogues whenever we want. So if the user navigates to a certain part of the page or focuses on an item, for example, we could then pop up a modal dialogue instead of having them use the regular form. Okay, so the Internet of Things. This is kind of a blanket statement, and we'll talk a bit more about it later, but it includes small household objects and household appliances that are all now linked to the internet. So there's many different companies that are embracing these technologies, and they all come with their own apps and APIs. So again, we'll look at this later, but there's lots of different apps. You might end up with lots on your phone to manage all your different services. Apex allows us to use our Oracle knowledge and development skills to kind of bring together all these different APIs into a single useful application. Real-time reporting. So people are expecting access to information in real time. So social media and streaming have really kind of brought this to people's attention. Apex has always allowed real-time reporting, so you can report directly on top of your data, and we can use inbuilt tools such as interactive reports to allow users access to this data and the ability to format this data. We can also use dynamic actions to constantly refresh the data on the screen, so we can have it updating in real time without constantly submitting the page. Okay, so security. So as more and more applications are moving to the web, this means that developers who haven't always had to think about security too much, they're now having to consider lots and lots of standard security issues that are apparent in all web development. So the HP Cyber Risk Report, which I've linked to here, says that 86% of web apps had serious issues with authentication, access control, and confidentiality, and 52% have cross-site scripting and SQL injection vulnerabilities. So out of the box, Apex 5 comes with lots of security features, and it's usually a case of just turning on these features. And in fact, in Apex 5, most of these features come already turned on. So you have to actually go out of your way when using Apex to make your application unsecure. So as long as you're developing sensibly, using bind variables, for example, you've got a really secure application out of the box, and you don't have to spend any time thinking about these security risks. They're all just inbuilt in Apex. Okay, so we're going to have a quick demonstration of some web technologies now. Okay, so here's my application. We're going to have a look at search first of all. So here's an Apex search screen. Out of the box, we've got a classic report here and a search bar. This was made using the classic report wizard. If I search now for George, for example, press go, we can see that our report refreshes and we have the results highlighted here. And this is just using a like. So this is pretty well functioning report, has nice search capabilities, but we've actually had a request recently from our internal users that they wanted a Google search. So when they said this, they mean they want a really fast, predictive search that's going to show results as they type. Obviously, Google have spent lots and lots of time and money perfecting their search, and we can't deliver exactly what Google can deliver, but we can take some steps to make our searches a bit more user-friendly. So let's have a look what we can do. Here we've got a very similar screen. We've got classic report and a search bar, and I've also added this view button so we can link to a single record and see all the details. Okay, so in this example, if I start searching for the same search term as before, you can see two things happening. We've got this prediction of the customer's name coming up based on what we type, and also the underlying report is refreshing as we type in real time without the screen refreshing. So if we carry on, and then if we delete, the report refreshes again, and if we search for one of the other fields, that's refreshing underneath, but we get no quick picks coming up. So let's talk first about this the classic report refreshing as we type. If I edit the page, we'll see how we did this. Okay, we've got a single dynamic action here called update report, and that's firing on the key release event whenever we type in P5 report search. So every time we type a character, we're actually going to fire this dynamic action. And what it does is it submits the value of P5 report search to session, and then it refreshes the region Apex search, which is based on the report search field. So we get this, we get the report updating as we type. The second thing we've got this autocomplete here. So if we search again for George, the autocomplete comes up. Now we found the autocomplete actually removed a lot of the instances where our users were getting the results that they didn't expect. So in our business case, if a user started typing a company name, for example, they may misspell it, and because it's misspelled, it's not going to bring any results back, so they think the company doesn't exist in the database. So they create a new version of the company, and we end up with multiple records of the same company, just all spelt differently. So now, as a user starts to type, we get these quick picks appearing here. So before they get to the potential spelling mistake, they will hopefully see their company and be able to just click on it. In this case, it's these users. We've got customer first name and customer last name. And we've also added this feature where you can click on one of these quick picks and it'll redirect you to the details screen. Okay, so let's see how we've done that. If we just remove this. If we go back to our page designer, all we've done to get the quick picks is we've changed a field to be a text field with autocomplete. So this is a built-in feature of Apex. And then at the bottom here, we can supply a query. So we've got the customer first name and customer last name, which we're searching on. We're also adding this ID tag at the start with the customer ID in, and this is going to allow us to redirect whenever this is clicked on. So if we have a look at the rest of the code for this, we've got this inline CSS saying do not display the ID div. And then as the page loads, we've got this code here, and this is just going to, this is the code that allows us to bind the click, and it's going to set the customer ID on the page, and then it's going to submit the page with the request go to details. So if we just have a look at this, we've got this go to details branch here, and all that's doing is branching to page 7, which is the details page, and passing the customer ID into P7 customer ID. So it's really simple, and we've actually implemented quite a good search there. You can take it a bit further, and you could add in possibly Oracle Text or an external tool like Elasticsearch, which we've been looking at. And this allows you to add fuzzy matching and soundex matching and lots of clever kind of ways to give the user relevant results based on what they've typed. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at charts. So here we have a Google chart in our application. I'm not a huge fan of the inbuilt Apex AnyChart charts, so I implement the charts that I like from external APIs. Soon we won't have to do that. When Apex 5.1's out, they'll be using Oracle Jet charts, which are great, and they're very similar to the Google charts, and they've got some nice animations as well, and they're completely customizable from within the builder. But for now, I'm using these Google charts, and the code for this has just been taken from Google's charting API website, and it's basically just copy and pasted into our application. So because Apex is just a web framework, we can include any external technology. So let's have a look, see how we've done this. Right, so we've got this region on the page here, and if we open it up, we call in the script to say that we want to load the Google API, the core chart visualization, and then under that we've just got this div called pie chart, and we've given it a height and a width. So now we need some data, so we've got this P2 JSON item on the page, so a hidden item. This isn't the best way to do this, but it's a really quick and easy way to get JSON into a chart on your application. So we need to get some data into this hidden item, and we do that as the page is loaded. So if we open up this here, we're using the Apex JSON package, and we're going to initialize a CLOB output. And then we're going to open object and open array, and we're going to actually hard code in these labels and types in exactly the way that Google's expecting them. So in this example, I know what chart I want, I know what values it needs, so I've just hard coded these in. Obviously you could base these on settings in the database. So once we've hard coded that, we're going to open this query here. We're going to, for each department, we're going to count the number of employees in it, and we're going to loop through that data. And for each row, we're going to open more objects and arrays, and we're going to print out the data exactly again how Google's expecting it. So once we finish that, we're going to close off all the arrays and objects, and we're going to use Apex JSON.get CLOB output to set P2 JSON to have this JSON data in it, and then we're just going to free the output there at the bottom. So finally, we need to draw the chart based on this data. So on page load, we're going to fire this code here, and this is going to set JSON data to be the raw value of what's in P2 JSON, and we're going to call the Google API to turn JSON data into a data variable. Then we're going to hard code some options in as well, and then we're going to tell it which div our pie chart is on, and then we're going to draw the chart, passing in the data and the options that we've set here, and that'll draw the pie chart on the page. So what we also want, we want this data to refresh in real time without submitting the page. So if I just go into my application and SQL Workshop, I'm going to find my employees table, I'm going to have a look at the data, and I'm going to scroll through this data so I find some shipping clerks here at the end. So if you have a look on the screen, we've got 38 shipping clerks. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to select one of them and I'm going to delete them from the data. Okay, so that row's been deleted. If you have a look at the screen now, we've got 38 employees in this department. If we press this refresh button at the top, we can see that changes. So just the chart is redrawn to say there's 37 people in that department now. So if we have a look at this code, we've got a dynamic action called refresh chart. That's just on the click of the button refresh at the moment. But what it's doing is it's calling the same code that you saw before. So it's going to re-grab the JSON data, and then we're going to redraw the chart based on that new data. So at the moment that's set to a button press, but you could use the timer plugin to create a dynamic action which would refresh this chart every few seconds or every few minutes depending on your data. Okay, so next we're going to have a look at Google Maps. So again, I'm using the Google API because it's got lots of documentation and it's really easy to use, and there's a really good community to help you with it. So here we've got a Google map, and we've got the postcode here is the Explorer postcode, and this is where we are now. And it's drawn this map based on these two postcodes, given us the best route, and it's given us a distance here in miles. If I change this postcode to be another and press go, we can see that the chart has redrawn and the distance has changed to 111 miles. So we use this kind of thing in our internal expenses application. It allows our employees to put where they set off from, where they drove to, and the distance will be calculated in miles for them to submit their expenses claim. So what you can also do is if Google draws the map and you decide I didn't actually go this way, you can drag the blue line and say I actually drove through Lincoln, and if you let go you can see that the distance there is increased on the page. So it's a really easy way for our employees to select their business miles. So let's have a look how we've done this. Okay, so we've got this map region and it's just got some Apex items. We've got origin, destination and distance, and we're going to use those within the code. Okay, so again, it's a bit more complicated. I'm not going to really go into it, but we've got a div called map, and this is just basically copy and pasted from the Google API examples. It's calling the Google Maps directions and renderer, and it's going to take the origin and destination, and it's going to pass those into the map. And it's going to get the route here using direction service route. And what we've also done, we're going to add this function calc route at the bottom, which is going to calculate the distance. So if we have a look down here, we've got these event listeners. So whenever the event directions change happens, so this is whenever we drag that blue line, we're going to make another call to calculate route, and we're going to pass in the directions on the page. So every time the user moves the blue line, we're going to recalculate the directions. So it's really simple to do. Okay, so if we just have a look, see if there's any extra code for that. In our HTML header here, all we're doing is loading up the Google Maps API. So that's really simple and really easy to implement into your application. Okay, we're going to have another look. We're going to have a look now at some social media integration. So if we have a look at Facebook first. Okay, so here we have a page that's got 4 different Facebook implementations. We've got a share button here. If you click that, you can actually share this to your own Facebook page. And we've got a like button that allows people that come onto your page to actually like it or unlike it. We've got a link to a Facebook page, so this is a UKOUG Facebook page, and you can actually scroll up and down that and click on links within it. And then here we've got the most useful one, I would say, which is a comment section. So I can add a comment here. And you can post that, and it adds it into this comment section below. So you can actually really easily add comments to your application just by using this API. So let's see how we've done this. So the first region here is the share button, and we've got this call to the Facebook API. So that just needs to be on your page once. You can put it where you want, but it's got to be above all your items. And then here we have a call to the share button, and we've added a bit of styling to it as well. Then we'll have a look at the like button. That's very similar. It's just a small div with a call. And then we've got the Facebook page, which is again very similar. Just we've got some widths and height settings here. And then we've got a comment section, which is really simple, just a div called FB comments. So all this has been done using the Facebook API widget generator, and this page allows you to pass in a few settings, press generate code, and it will give you a small snippet of code to put into your application, which will give you this extra functionality. So the comments page you can put on anywhere in your application and have comments appearing from your users, as long as they've got a Facebook account. Okay, so as well as Facebook, we're going to have a look at Twitter. So here we've got website content with nothing in it, and then we've got a Twitter feed on the right hand side, and you can see my colleague Matt here presenting at Tech 16. So this is searching for the Oracle Apex hashtag, and it's going to give you the results in your page, and you can scroll through. You can see what's going on at the moment at Tech 16. So let's have a look how we've implemented this. We've got our content on the left, and then a region to the right of that. And inside here, it's just a really simple call to the Twitter API. So it's the Twitter timeline, and then you tell it which hashtag you want. And then there's an ID for the widget. So this is generated in exactly the same way as Facebook's API. You give it some settings, tell it the hashtag that you want, and press generate, and it'll give you this really small piece of code to just paste into your application. So it couldn't be simpler to add a Twitter timeline to your application. And this is used to really good effect on the apex.world website, where you can see lots of information about Apex, and then the hashtag Oracle Apex is searched on the right hand side of the screen. What you could also do with something like this is you could have it updating in real time using a combination of the timer plugin, the refresh dynamic action, and the classic report template. So because classic reports can be refreshed using Ajax without submitting the page, you can use a trick where you put your HTML code into a classic report template, and then you can refresh it using a dynamic action really easily. Okay, so we're going to have a look at Dropbox integration now. So I have this Dropbox screen here, and this is using a Dropzone plugin, which I'll show you as well. And we've got a Dropbox account. So all I've got in at the moment is this one image. So if we get some images, What we can do with the drop zone is we can take an image and drag it here, and it'll be uploaded into our application. Then it'll give us a tick, and then you can see at the bottom here, black logo has been added to my Dropbox. So we'll do the same again with the white logo, add it into the drop zone plugin, and this has been uploaded again to my Dropbox. So if we open our Dropbox page, you can see that these have both been added to our account. So this is really useful. It allows us to share documents online. You kind of create, you can map a drive on your machine to this Dropbox account, and you can upload files through your application into this account. And whereas we've used these images here, what you could do is you could generate PDFs, for example, and instead of emailing them to people, you can upload them to a shared drive and have them accessed on each user's machine. So how have we done this? First we'll have a look at the plugin. This was taken from the Apex World website, and it's just dragged on here into the page designer, and you can set lots of attributes, tell it what it's going to look like and how it's going to function, but all it really does is upload your files in a nicer way than the Apex file upload item. What it does have is this PLSQL code region, and we've just added a few things to this. This is mostly the code that comes with it, but we've declared at the top a token, an auth code for Dropbox, and then here we're making a call to an API that we have installed. This is a PLSQL API. If anybody wants any more information, you can drop me an email. We're passing in the token code, the file name, and the provider, which is Dropbox. And then we're just going to use this call here, create entry, and we're going to pass in the blob content. So like I said, you could do this, you could call this bit of code here after generating a PDF report, for example, and upload this to the shared drive. Okay, so it's really simple, a really easy way to get Dropbox uploading working. So finally, we're just going to have a quick look at some layout. So Apex comes with a universal theme. It's been a massive improvement over the 4.2 theme, and it brings Apex in line with other modern web technologies, and it just looks really nice. It's really customizable. However, as kind of fashions change and things become popular in web design, we can't expect Apex to constantly keep up with the changes in how things should look or how people expect them to look. But because it's just a web framework, we can implement anything we see around the web in our own applications. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is parallax regions. So we've got this image here, this big title image, and underneath we've got this Apex form. As we scroll down, the image in the background doesn't scroll, or it scrolls at a different speed, and you can see that that image changes to white. So there's two images there. We're using parallax scrolling to scroll our region just between the two. So that's really easy to implement. When you get to the bottom as well, you can use the inbuilt button to scroll back up to the top. So let's see how we did that. We've got this parallax region here, so we just start it, and then you give it a background URL. So if we have a look here, in the CSS we've got this background URL, which is a black logo for parallax, and then we've got these settings here to give it the parallax scrolling effect, and then we've got a second region underneath which has got the white logo and again the parallax scrolling effect settings on it. So it's really simple to do using just CSS. So next we've got a carousel. So if I click on this, For this example, I'm just going to make the screen a little smaller because it looks nicer. And we can scroll through this and we get this nice carousel effect. And this code's just been copy and pasted from a Bootstrap carousel example. So if we edit the page and see how we've done this, the content, we've just got this container, and then we're going to call the div slick carousel. So slick is the library that we're using, and then we put our divs that we want inside the carousel inside there. The top of the page, we're loading up the slick.js and slick CSS files, and when the page loads, we've got this function to kind of create our carousel. And we've also got some extra bits of CSS in the inline CSS here. So this has all just been taken from examples on the web, pasted into the relevant parts of our page to create an effect that we've seen on an external web page. Okay, so finally we're going to have a look at images. So it's really easy to get images in your application in Apex, but this example shows you how we can use just CSS to change how these images look as you kind of hover over them. So these ones have no effect, and these ones have a zoom. And we've again got more zoom, and zoom out. And these ones slide, and these rotate and zoom out. Then we've got an unblur effect, grayscale to colour, and the same thing with sepia. This one blurs and grayscales as you hover, and this one changes the opacity. And here's the same thing with some different colours. And here we have a flashing effect, and a shine effect, and a shine with a circle. So all these things add just a little bit extra to your web page. You might have some static images on your front page, for example, and as the user hovers, just these small effects give your website just that little bit extra. This has all been done using CSS. So if we have a look at the content, we've just got a load of images, and in our inline CSS we have separate CSS for each row of images, and it just uses this WebKit transition and WebKit transform and various other options just to give us these nice different effects. So there's lots of examples here that you can use in your website to kind of give your page just that little bit extra that you can't do out of the box in Apex. Okay, so that's the end of this example, so we'll go back to the presentation. We're going to have a look now at the Internet of Things. So, as I said before, the Internet of Things is kind of a blanket word or phrase which covers lots of different small household objects and appliances that are all starting to become connected to the internet. So we've got just a few examples here. We've got Nest and Hive, which allow you to control your home, so your heating and your lights and your security cameras and things like that. And Philips Hue is a very similar thing, but just for lights. We've got Amazon Web Services, which is constantly expanding set of APIs, which include things like voice recognition, and you can kind of connect to this using the APIs. We've got iBeacon on there. This is a really small Bluetooth beacon which allows you to detect proximity of objects. So you could potentially have something like if every member of your family had an iBeacon, attached to their mobile phone cover, you'll be able to tell who is in your house at any time. Once they came into the radius that was detectable, they would kind of flash up, and you could log that and do something with it. Now I've got Raspberry Pi on there as well, because this is an example of a small computer which you can program to do whatever you want. So you can create your own Internet of Things device. So you could, for example, have your Raspberry Pi detecting iBeacons and then pushing that data into an Oracle database. So here we have an example of the Nest Home Simulator. This allows you to develop a Nest application without actually changing a physical real Nest implementation, and there's lots of different APIs you can call to kind of control this. So here you can set up different structures and thermostats and cameras, for example, and then you call that using different APIs that are all documented on their website. So you create a token, and it uses the OAuth 2 authentication, which is really popular at the moment. And you call the API, and we're just using a really simple GET request here to get the list of structures. And you can see this is just done in PLSQL using the Apex Web Service package. So we're using inbuilt Apex functionality to get this JSON response. And because we are Apex developers, Oracle developers, we can use our existing skills and we can bring together all these APIs. So you could take this Nest API, put it into your own application, and then if you get other Internet of Things devices, you can bring them as well into your own application. So instead of having lots of different apps on your phone to control everything, you can create your own single app to control your house. So here's an example that I've quickly mocked up. We've got an Apex mobile theme page. We've got current hue light status, they're set to on. We've got buttons to turn them on and off. We've got a slider showing the thermostat temperature, and you can slide that up and down, and you could then call the thermostat API in Nest. And then underneath we've got, like I said before, we've got a Who's Home report showing you which people in your household, whose iBeacons have actually come into proximity of your detecting device. Okay, so a real-world example of the Internet of Things or a device connecting to an Oracle database is the Raspberry Pi Weather Measurements project, and this was set up by Oracle and Raspberry Pi. And what they're doing is they've sent out lots of these weather station kits and Raspberry Pis to schools, and they're able to set them up themselves and use that in the classroom, and then put these weather stations outside, and the data that's recorded is pushed into an Oracle database on the cloud, and they can actually go in and access that data. So the things it measures are rainfall, wind speed, wind gust speed, wind direction, ambient temperature, soil temperature, barometric pressure, relative humidity, air quality, and it's got a real-time clock, so you can log the data with the time that it was recorded. So we've worked with Raspberry Pi to upgrade their application on top of this from Apex 4.2 to 5, and this application allows schools to log in and then see all their weather station data, and they can see it in an Apex interactive report, which gives them the ability to manipulate the data, add filters, create charts, and kind of get some meaningful results from this data. What they can also do, if they select to share their data, you can share it with other schools, and schools can log on, and you can filter by country and location, and you can actually compare your results to other schools, and they're trying to create kind of community around this, allowing schools to work together to learn about the weather and creating these weather stations. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation. We've had a look at kind of current trends and the way that web development is going, and how we can incorporate that into Apex and how Apex stands with regards to each of those. And then I quickly showed you some examples of searching and maps, charts, file uploads, and some external APIs. Then we've had a quick look at Internet of Things connections. So hopefully you can see that Apex is really well placed to go forwards and keep moving forwards with current trends. There's no limitations basically. It's just a web framework and you can implement anything you want. So if you want to learn more, you can check out our website. We've got blogs on there, we're constantly updating. You can also send me an email if you like at craig.sykes@explorer.uk.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at ExplorerUK Ltd. Thank you for listening.